Hi there, my name's Gina Gardiner and I'm really pleased to join you today on day 15 of my 30-day challenge. There's been a couple of days where I haven't been able to do these, partly because I've been away working in Manchester, sorting out some stuff, and the internet connection wasn't great. And so I made the decision that I would focus on what I was doing and that I would wait until I came back and then continue the challenge. I was really struck when I went to Manchester. And actually, that's the home of my birth. I was born in Urmston Cottage Hospital many years ago and lived in Flixton for the first few years of my life. But I was really struck by, firstly, the people in the hotel. And it didn't matter what position they had, whether they were behind the desk, behind the bar, in the restaurant. Everybody went out of their way to make me feel welcome, to make me feel valued, and to do their very best to sort out whatever it was that needed sorting. And they appeared to do it with real pleasure and get a huge sense of satisfaction from doing their job. And I'm reminded how often I've talked about to clients and to when I've been running workshops or training sessions about living a life with passion. Now, living a life of passion perhaps has different connotations. But for me, living a life with passion means doing everything full out, living in the moment and making the best of that opportunity, no matter what the job at hand. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're the CEO of a big company or whether you're the person who sweeps the floors and cleans the toilets. What's really important is that you do the very best job that you can do and that you do it with enthusiasm. Now, it's probably much more difficult to find enthusiasm for cleaning the loos than it is to actually doing a job that has huge rewards financially or rewards because it's creative and it's something that you love doing. But nevertheless, when you do something and you do it with the intention that you're going to do the very best you can do within the context of that situation, and that you imbue that with enthusiasm and passion, not only do you do a better job, but actually the quality of your life is just so different. And I think if all of us could do the washing up, to do the kitchen, clean the kitchen floor, to empty the rubbish, and actually choose to make the most of that, life would be very, very different. I was in London a few years ago and I was very struck that I went to the loo at the beginning of the day and it was in complete disarray. There were papers where people had wiped their hands left there, the sinks were streaked, the mirrors were streaked. The whole place looked empty and a mess. And it was not a pleasant experience actually, picking your way through the paper on the floor and so on. I went back after the first morning session and there was a lady there. She was physically tiny. I mean, she must have been about 4'8" or 9. But she'd been working on the loos and they were absolutely sparkling and they looked wonderful. And I went up to her and I said, "Thank you, what a fabulous job you've done. What a difference you've made." Now, there were two lessons there. One, she grew to about 6 foot tall when I said thank you. And I think the power of thank you is hugely underrated. And perhaps that's a theme for another Facebook Live. But what struck me about this lady is she took a real pride in what she did. That actually there were things that she had done to make the place look and smell and appear to be the very best it could be. And some of that may not have been noticed by most people, but it didn't matter. It mattered to her. She did her job with passion. She was somebody who was determined that we would see the difference that she had made and she would make the maximum difference that she could positively within her role. And I've worked with people in my school when I ran the school where teachers would make light of the secretary's role or of the site keeper's role, site manager's role or the cleaner's role. And yet everybody's role was incredibly important. And what was important to me was not only did the person who was doing the job do it with passion and give it their best value, but other people recognise that as well. And I can remember pointing out to more than one young teacher, you can go into schools where the boys' toilets have an impact or far down the corridor that's unpleasant. You don't have that here. It doesn't matter whether it's hot outside, whether, what time of the day it is, they smell sweet and they don't have a negative impact on the corridor or in your classrooms because somebody has taken the trouble to do that job with enthusiasm, to make sure that that job is a good job, and they've done it with pride. And so not only should you be thankful to them, because I don't suppose you want to go and clean the boys' toilets, or the girls for that matter, but also you've got to appreciate that they have done more than the minimum. They've done a great job. They have lived that part of their life with passion. And I think there's a great lesson there for all of us, because every single one of us has jobs to do that we hate, but that have to be done. And we can do them and, approach those jobs thinking, oh God, I don't want to do that, and be very half-hearted and, only give them a bit of our attention. And eventually, those jobs get done, but they're done in a very different way than somebody says, it may not be what I want to do, but I'm going to give this job my best attention. And in doing that, we give that role, that activity, a almost spiritual sense that is not existing there if you're doing it because there's a sense of begrudgingly, I've got to do it. The minute you do anything with a whole heart, with passion, with love, it takes on a completely different feel, not only for the outcome, but probably more importantly, what it's doing to you inside. Because when you do things with a fulsome heart, with love, however simple or lowly that job may appear, it takes on a completely different meaning to us and to others when we do it with a full heart, with enthusiasm, with passion. So thanks for joining me. And I'm really interested to know, what are your views around living a life with passion? How often have you noticed the difference between when you do something begrudgingly because you don't want to do it, because you don't like it, and when you decide to actually, I'm going to enjoy this. I am going to take the time to do this from a very different starting place. I'm reminded of a story that Anthony Robbins once told on a course that I was on, where he was asked, he went to an ashram in India, and part of the deal was that you stayed there for free, but you had to be of service. You had to do the jobs that were assigned to you. Now, he's a very tall man, 6'7". He's huge. He's a giant in all sorts of ways, but physically a giant. And the job that he was given to do was to do the washing up. The problem was that the washing up was done in a hut that was not as tall as he was. And so he was crouched down doing the washing up. And they had millions, literally hundreds of thousands at least, of people every day who were fed at this ashram. And he was washing up the plates and the pots and pans for 8 or 9 hours in this very, very cramped, hot, steamy, unpleasant conditions. And on that first day, he did it begrudgingly. I don't know what I'm doing here. How they've given me the washing up. Why have they given me that? I don't want this. Don't want to do it. It's uncomfortable. It's degrading. It's beneath me. I'm important. And by the end of the day, he was very grumpy, very hot, and I had a day that had been extremely unpleasant. Overnight, as he was lying on his far too short a bed, he gave what had happened a huge amount of thought. And he recognized that the only person who lost out when he was doing this in such a way that belittled what he was doing, where he was resentful of the job, it made no difference to the washing up in reality, but it made a huge difference to how he felt. And he'd got 3 weeks of this. And so he made the decision that from the following day, he was going to do it wholeheartedly, with passion, and make himself the very best washer-upper that they had ever had. He went in with a very different attitude. He was singing, joking with the other people. The day went quickly, the washing up got done. And by the end of the day, instead of feeling completely empty and tired and exhausted, more than just the physical exhaustion from standing in a hot place, but made less of, he felt enriched, he felt filled up, he felt enthusiastic, and the tiredness was a very, very different sort. So I suppose my challenge to you is, how often do you spend your time doing things because you got to and you don't want to, and it's made very clear that you don't want to, either in the way in which you do it or because you moan about it and because you are resentful of it? And going back to those staff in the hotel in Manchester, I got a real sense that they saw me as not the hotel's guest, but their guest, and that they wanted to make me feel welcome and valued and looked after. And it was not an expensive hotel, but it was a hotel where they really wanted to make a difference. It was the Holiday Inn Express by Stockport Station, quite a new hotel, and I can recommend it in terms of the staff and their capacity to go out of their way to make a difference. Think about your last few days and think about how often you have done a job and where you've done it with enthusiasm, with passion, and how that's made you feel. Just think about, revisit that and think about your energy within your body. Scan your body and how did it feel? Did it feel that you were expanding as you were involved in that activity? And then compare that with, when you've had to do a job that perhaps you didn't want to do, or a job you found difficult, a job that you found boring. And think about, how did that make you feel? Revisit that and scan your body and actually think, where in your body did all of those negative feelings sit? And I ask you, which do you prefer? Do you get more out of the situation when you do things fulsomely, with pride, with enthusiasm, and with a great deal of energy and passion? Or when you're resisting doing something, not wanting to do it because you feel you are more important than that, or that the job is in some way degrading or unnecessary or challenging? And look at feel how those energies are completely different. We're made up of our physical self, our emotional self, our mental self, if you like, which is partly emotional and partly other things, I think, but also our spiritual self. And if you think about us as spiritual beings, we're on a journey to learn. And I believe that part of our learning is about the way in which we approach things, the beliefs that we have about those things colour the outcome and also have an enormous impact on how we are feeling and how whether we feel valued in ourselves. Now, it's great when somebody says thank you to you and recognises what you do, but the most important person who makes a judgment about whether what you're doing has validity, whether it's important, whether you're doing a good job or not, is not somebody outside you, it's you. And so living in the moment, living with passion, I believe, is a really important step in terms of our spiritual journey to enlightenment, if you like. Now, there are a couple of exercises that can help you live in the moment. One of those is to take a square of good quality chocolate. It doesn't have to be anything too expensive, but something that's got a good level of cocoa butter in it and an interesting flavour if that's what you want. But use a pinhead to eat that piece of chocolate. So it's not about putting it in your mouth and letting it disappear, which is what most of us do very quickly. That piece of chocolate has gone, that moment has gone. We don't savor it. Is to use a pinhead or a cocktail stick and just take a tiny piece of chocolate and lay it on our tongue and experiment with different parts of the tongue and feel how the taste changes. Notice that, how it builds up on different parts of your tongue. And when you've done that for a few minutes, then put the remaining piece of chocolate in your mouth, close your eyes, and feel in the mouth how that chocolate melts and what's the sensation of that chocolate melting in your mouth. What can you smell? How does the taste make you feel? What's the associations that you have with chocolate? And so that for the time that you're spending on eating that piece of chocolate, you really have a sense of being absolutely present and doing that with enthusiasm and with your whole attention. In other words, doing it with passion. The second exercise I would suggest you do, let's go back to the washing up and the washing up that Anthony Robbins has done. Now, it's not my favourite pastime. One of my most favourite pieces of kitchen equipment is my dishwasher. But there are still times when one needs to actually wash up, even if you've got a dishwasher. And so what I'm suggesting that you do is to use that exercise of washing up as an opportunity to discover how your approach to it, your beliefs around it, the way in which you carry out that job make a huge difference. And so as you run the water, feel the water on your hands. When you put the bubbles in, I don't know whether you put the bubbles in and then the water or the water then the bubbles, but as you make the bubbles, actually feel those bubbles either on your hands, or if you wear rubber gloves, what can you feel through the rubber gloves? And then each piece of cutlery or crockery or pan or whatever it is you're washing up, to actually feel the weight of that in your hands and how the shape feels. And to use every one of your senses involved in washing up, so that you are utilizing that not only as a job, but as an opportunity to really focus on being in the moment and to be enthusiastic about being in the moment. Now, I'm not suggesting you do this every time you wash up, and it doesn't have to be washing up, it can be some other job. But actually and actively do that activity with your whole focused attention, with enthusiasm, and with a real opportunity to learn about you and the impact that living in the moment and being enthusiastic and living with passion can make on your life. And when you do it in these very simple activities, I think you will discover that there's a qualitative difference to the outcome of the job, but also to how you feel about doing the job and how you feel generally. And I would suggest for the next week, every day you choose something different to do mindfully, in the moment, with enthusiasm and with passion. I'd love to know which jobs you choose, and I'd love to know the outcome. Please do tell me. Now, this whole 30-day challenge is to raise awareness of my mission. And my mission is to positively impact on 1 million people within the next 5 years. And one of the things that I'm asking for is your help. Please share this video with other people. Talk about it. Share the information that people can buy my latest international best-selling book, Thriving, Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success and Fulfillment. And they can get a free digital download of that book by going onto the website. You can now also buy an audio version of the book, or if you prefer to have a physical book in your hand, you can buy a physical book. And you can find all of that on the website. You can also try out the Thrive Tribe for a month for $1. Nothing to lose. And the link is there for you to find out more. But whatever you decide to do, please do it with passion. I'd love you to come and like the Genuinely You page, to come and join that group. And that's just an open group of people who want to explore their emotional, their spiritual, their physical well-being, seeing themselves as a holistic person, somebody who has different facets and elements to them, and to join other people who want to do the same. So there's lots of ways which you can get involved and help, but whatever you do it with passion. Do it with a whole, full heart. Do it with love. Thank you very much for joining me. Please do let me know what you think on the comment box. If you're listening to this as a recording, just put your name in the comment box so I know that you've been here. It would be lovely to make contact with you. Thanks so much and have a great day. Bye now.